All right, Brooklyn Comic-Con, what's up? How you doing? That was okay, just a little bit more. Can you tell me, are you excited to be here right now? Excellent, much better. Listen, we are here today in an incredible panel right now, as you can see. Just really quick, my name is Tatiana King. This is DJ Ben-Hameen. We are the hosts of For All Nerds, which is a podcast covering geek and pop culture from the perspective of people of color. And we cover everything in fandom. We're talking about Game of Thrones, X-Men, Marvel, everything you could think of. We're talking about it. We're listening to everyone, and we're making sure that we are uplifting the voices of the marginalized. So today we are here for, which is a panel that I think is the most legendary thing I've ever done. This is the X-Men 97 Legacy panel, okay? Give it up. And we have some incredible legends, and I wanna make sure y'all make sure to give them their flowers, okay? At the very end, we have Miss Alison Court, the voice of the OG Jubilee, jubilationally, from the X-Men animated series, and the voice of Absissa, the future Jubilee, from the X-Men 97, okay?
Hi.
We also have the George Buza, the voice of Beast. Dr. Hank Philip McCoy himself in both series, and we have Mother, the baddest Bajan to walk the earth. Miss Alison Seeley Smith, the voice of Storm. Aurora Monroe herself in the flesh. Thank you all for being here. Appreciate your time. Okay. Appreciate your time and energy to be with us and talk with us. Before we get into any questions, how are all of you doing today? How are you feeling?
Really good. Really good. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with you. You guys are what make this journey make sense, and it's just really, really good to talk to you guys in person. So I'm having a fantastic time.
Nothing makes us feel better than meeting the people who gave us our work, who gave us our jobs, and who brought the series back to life. Thank you, and God bless every single one of you.
Yeah. Oh. You can see why I was replaced. No. I'm just kidding. No, honestly, being in Brooklyn, all of us, I don't know why my mic is being, can I use yours?
Mine's off. It's not me.
Can you all hear me? Hi. Hi. Thank you. No, being in Brooklyn is awesome. Like, we're so happy to be here. And the number of people that we have met today who have grown up with our work. So you all have been a part of the journey. So as much as we've been a part of your lives, you've all been a part of our lives and our journey, going from the original to what it is now. As George and Alison said, thank you so much for your unwavering loyalty, your passion, and just your joie de vivre. I know the characters hit you all in different ways, but you're here and we couldn't be more grateful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And as mentioned, we are here to talk about the legacy of X-Men, your legacies, personal legacies, all the work you've done and how much we appreciate you. And as you're sitting here on stage with us, you see maybe 100 pairs of eyes looking back at you with love and joy and affection. And hopefully you're being showered with love today. You know, we think about X-Men 97, the fact that it's had an immaculate run right now. It's had 100% Rotten Tomatoes rating. Critics and audience across a cadre of publication and spaces have said it's phenomenal. I mean, it's just a pure success. So when you look back 25 years ago, Did you think you would be in this space right now when it comes to your legacy in Xmen?
It hadn't occurred to me. When we were doing this in the 90s, what we knew was we had a good script, we had a great story, we had a wonderful team. What we, or at least what I didn't know, was the impact, the resonance that it was having out there. We didn't even have cell phones, far less social media. So we had absolutely no idea what was going on. I tell the story of, it was some years after we had finished recording Xmen, and the first inkling that I had that we were part of something that was actually a social phenomenon. I didn't know, but I was on set and I was doing a small role in a film, and all the IATSE guys were the crew, and these are very stoic, kind of cynical guys who've been there, done that, don't have a whole lot of time for spoiled, pampered performers. And they've already seen everybody, all the great artists and so on. So they pretty much ignore us and just do their job. And somehow word must have gotten out that the voice of Storm was on set. And I've never seen anything like it. I mean, men were dropping lights, men were dropping cable, they were stopping, and they were all coming over and they were yelling at each other. Dude, Storm, man. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? And that's when I realized the kind of impact that the show was having. And of course, that is nothing to what we understand now. I mean, in the 90s, I'd never even heard the word fandom. And now to realize how important this thing is, and sometimes it's something that I actually have to forget when I go into the studio, because all of a sudden you have the weight of all of these fans' expectations, what they think, their opinions, and you can't think about that. You've got to go in and you've got to do your job. But that was a long-winded way of saying, no, we didn't know at the time.
They like to keep it a secret, too. They never told us about the mountains of fan mail that was accumulating at Fox Studios or at Saban Entertainment. We were all held on the hook, waiting to see whether we were going to be renewed for another season. And each year we'd get renewed, and when we hit 5 years, that's the magic number for syndication. So we were all kind of anticipating the end of the show. But it's very seldom that an actor gets an opportunity to do something that has such an impact on people's lives that they find refuge in what you are doing for a living. And it is such a rare gift to be able to see that this had an impact, that people found relief in the words that were written for us. And the kudos also has to go out to the writers who nailed it right on the head, to be able to get scripts that appealed to the people who were the most disenfranchised, who needed it the most, and found their solace every Saturday morning in that half hour that we put on the screen. And so, no, we had no idea of the impact, or that we would be here today, 30 years later, reprising our roles and talking to you today. So thank you again.
At the time of the show, I was also doing the big comfy couch. And because of the toys and all of the merchandise, in the 90s, most of my time was touring across the United States as Lunette, going to toy stores, signing autographs and taking photos and all of that stuff. So every now and then I'd come home and I'd record an episode of Xmen, and that was like my That was the quiet thing. That was the thing that nobody talked about, right? Because couch was this big marketing thing. So it's so wonderful to be back and finally see everybody who is involved in this show get to have that experience, to taste what's out there, to see that we are hitting people. I remember in 1996 being in Ethiopia, in Addis Ababa, in a hotel and watching the Xmen. And I'd had a fight with my boyfriend. And the Xmen came on, and just hearing these guys' voices, I was comforted. I felt home, even though I was on the other side of the world, because it was just, it was that comfort, it was that familiarity, and I know that that's how all of you feel when you watch the show and you hear the original voices. It just hits different. So at the time, no, we didn't know that Xmen was going to have this impact. But the funny thing is, I'm a director now. And I get to, thank you. And I get to bring my buddies in on shows when producers are like, oh, we need a voice that's kind of this or kind of that. And I'm like, oh yeah, you mean like Alison Seeley Smith? And before 97 came out, they were like, oh, I'm not familiar. I'm like, Storm? No. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, just cast her. She's who you want. And she comes in, they're like, oh, she's amazing. I'm like, yeah, huh? And then same thing with George. Yeah. And then shortly afterwards, the announcement for Xmen 97 came out. And then folks were like, do you think we could get such and such? I'm like, oh yeah, I can just call them right now. You want me to see if Alison's available? I don't know, she's out on her island home, so I don't know if she wants to come in for this, but I'll check. It's amazing night and day, but these two, the whole cast, they absolutely deserve all the accolades. And we didn't know it back then, but we're getting to taste it now. Thank you.
All right, well, Xmen, the comic book, the show, everything, the property itself has long served as an analog for the journey of civil rights for marginalized people, whether speaking on black people in America, people of color that have been less advocated for, and definitely even the LGBTQ community as well. So, one, I just want to know, what does it, because you've got 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And then we're in this era where if there's anything that's even slightly progressive, people will start calling it woke, and they'll just hate on it for no reason. And it was wild to me when I was on Reddit, and I'd see people saying, well, yeah, it's woke, but it's still so good, I gotta watch it, So how important is it for you to be part of this thing that is representing and representative of so many different people?
It's huge. It's huge. Representation is everything. And I've been fortunate enough to be part of a few firsts. And it's just really, really important. And I don't quite know. You guys would have to tell me what the secret is of Xmen in a way, that it is allowed to be woke. But I think there is something about being representation of, yes, a powerful, grounded black woman, but the fact that she's an Omega level threat. That'll wake them up, won't it?
I did an interview for a podcast in which I was asked whether I thought that the new Xmen 97 was too woke. And after a moment of regurgitating my lunch into a bucket, I asked the guy, I said, what do you think the entire show is about? End of story. So yeah, this is what the show is all about, is about all the disenfranchised people, whether they be of color, whether they be of persuasions, or whether they be of political leanings. Everybody is equal, and everybody has a right to be accepted. And that is the refuge that everybody found in this show, and what the writers hit so hard on the head.
Yeah. It's about being different and being persecuted for your differences. You know, it's about being hated for your differences and being different in ways that aren't even a choice. It's just who you are. You're a wanted man, that's all right. Hi, whoever it is. Okay, no, George knew right from the beginning. George was the only member of the cast that actually was familiar with the comic book. So he was sort of our in-house guru knowledge for the property. And he's the first one to tell you it was always woke, mother effers.
Go ahead, good clap.
I was one of the few people in the cast that was alive when the first comic book came out.
My answer to that question of is it woke is always, where have you been?
Yes.
It's been this way. I'm curious about the recording process for X-Men 97, right? Like you've had this world that you've been in, and then it's dormant for a while, right? Now you coming back, what was that like? For example, were you guys ever in the booth together? Were you always isolated doing your own lines? Did you even get a chance to be a part of the writing process or do any revisions? How was that recording process for your voices and for your characters for X-Men 97?
Isolation is the name of the game. I was kind of used to it because the first time around, I think you guys got some opportunities to work together. But at that point, I was doing a whole bunch of Shakespeare out at the Stratford Shakespearean Festival. The one day that I had off per week was Monday. There was no way that they were trying to call 8 or 9 actors together on just that one day. They weren't about to work around my schedule. So from the very beginning, for me, I was alone. And I mean, at first it was terrifying. I'm a theater person, which means that teamwork is everything. I'm up on a stage every night, and you know, the only safety net that I have is my fellow actors up on stage, and the fact that we can lock eyes, and you know, I don't know how many times we've looked at each other and my eyes are going, I don't know what happens next. Somebody say something, please. So you depend on each other, and each night that you do it, it's slightly different because somebody's giving a different energy. And even the X-Men was the first animation job I ever had. I had done radio drama before that, and radio drama, we were all in the room together. So I walked in fully confident that I was going to be meeting my fellow actors, and we were going to vibe, man. We were just going to kill it. And I didn't know what was going on, but they did. So I was just going to ride that wave. And I went in, and there was a microphone, and there was a music stand, and a script, and me. And I was terrified. But you get used to it, and it's a completely different way of working. Nothing else compares to it. Not film, not live film, nothing. Theater, nothing compares with being alone in a studio with a script that maybe you haven't done for 2 months. They call you in, you do your recording, you're waiting for them to call you back in again, you're getting terrified, maybe they've written me out of the show. I don't understand what's going on. What happened to Storm? And then you'll come in and you'll do it again. So no, we weren't a part of the, I think some people probably were able to say, I don't want to say the line like this, I want to say this one instead. I think after all my years of doing theater where the word is sacrosanct, you can't even change a the to anything. I had a great respect. And the writing was so good that, I just went in there and did it. But it was something to get used to, that particular process where you feel like, you have to find it all in the words on the page because there's not much else to hold on to.
Can I just add to that? She was so intimidating. Okay, because she was in recording all of her stuff, and then the rest of us would be like waiting in the lobby or in the lunchroom or whatnot. And it was like, no, Alison has to get her stuff done. She has to get to Stratford for an 11 a.m. fitting or something. And like Stratford is the theater in Canada. It is the theater. So we're all like, oh, she's one of them actors. Oh. But she had this presence, and it was like, you knew that they'd cast the right person for Storm, because it was like, okay. And yet she's so cuddly in real life.
I don't know. I know how to do Queen. What can I say?
Well, the whole process of recording in the studio and doing the animation is that you are watching the film in your head, and you are hearing the other lines being spoken to you in your head, so that when you are reciting your lines, you're responding to the movie that's playing in your head. And this is the same process that we used when we did radio drama, is that the director told us, just pretend like you're watching a film in your head, and pretend, and everything will just flow. And in the beginning, we had the same process as we did in radio drama, where all of us recorded together, except for Alyson because of her commitments. But it became so time-consuming because everybody's microphone had to be turned off every time another person spoke. So the whole process became time-consuming, and it destroyed the spontaneity that they were looking for. So they just decided to bring us in individually, or if you had an intimate scene with one other actor, the two of you would play together. But that was something that they discovered through the process of doing it the long way, and then this takes too long, it's getting too expensive. That was the key, too expensive. We can't have all these people hanging around for 5 hours where we can do it all in one. So that came to an end.
That part was great while it was happening. The first episode, we re-recorded it like 4 times. And it took like 4 days to record each time. So I think that paid us more money than like most of the rest of the seasons.
Well, it wasn't us that made the money. What they had to do is rent the studio for much longer and pay the engineer many more hours. And that was the deciding factor.
All right, I'm sure that everyone in this room has one, but what were your favorite scenes or moments from the first season of Xmen '97?
Ripping the guts out of the Sentinel.
I can't remember the lines or anything, but there was a scene at the end of one of the episodes, and I think Sauron has messed with Storm's head, and she goes absolutely berserk, and she's doing all kinds of stuff, and it's not good stuff. And at the end of it, she says to Rogue, and again, I can't remember the lines, but it was about how hard it is to keep everything under control all of the time. And that when she let go that time, even though it was harm in some ways, she said she had never felt so free. And of course, as a Black woman, sometimes I think, the rage that we walk with, that our grandmothers passed down to us, that our mothers passed down to us, the intergenerational trauma that we carry, and that we can't afford to let all of it out. We've got to find a way to deal with that rage against the oppression, rage against the injustice. But we know that if we let go and we gave in to all of those feelings that we carry around with us, I mean, Storm would drown the world. And Alison could hurt her friends. And so that there was something that I held on to there, that, you know, what it is that we go through as women, as people of color, as marginalized communities, where we have to grip ourselves. You know, you can't fall into that angry person trope because you'll push people away. But sometimes, sometimes you just want to let go. You just want to let go.
On that note, when Jubilee turns to Storm and she's like, why do they hate us? And that conversation. And Storm is so, like, it's all of that you just said. And it's the undertone, and yet it's what she says to comfort Jubilee is so graceful and dignified. But you know, like, how long did it take her to get to that point, right? How much did she carry forward? And the message is, because we're different, we can't afford to release that rage. You don't get the out of jail free card that others do. You gotta rein it in. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite moments.
All right. Now I have 3 very specific questions about each of your characters and moments from this season. One, Jubilee, how was it when you got to play, when you got to play I called you, but yeah, when you got to play the elder version when you meet in the game? And then Hank, I'm keep calling you by your names again. Like your journey, Hank's journey from the original series to now, like his views on everything and all the different things he's gone through, and like how do you approach that to be the character that he is now? Because he really, I think, probably more so than any of the other X-Men, his views on what mutant kind should do versus humanity have really shifted throughout the series. And then when you got to play yourself and the adversary, and you know, first of all, just yeah. And then, you know, what was that like and how did you approach that?
Okay, before I go there, I just wanted, there was sort of a little addendum to the thing that I was saying before about holding on to the rage and wanting to let go, and that the antidote to that, the way that we manage to navigate that rage and the urge to let go, but you can't, the antidote to that is community, is family. Without that, we wouldn't be able to survive. So I think X-Men did say how it is that you manage to control it, how it is that you don't bury that rage so that it becomes cancerous and it eats you from the inside out. What X-Men says is there is family, and if it's not the one you're born with, then it's the one that you find. And it's about community, and if it's not the one that you're currently in, it's the one that you build. And so I think that's really important. That was really cool, the whole adversary Storm bit. We actually did adversary first. It was just about the first thing that I did was this role. And so there was no Storm in my head when I did adversary. I just jumped in and played with this character. And it was funny because after all of this time, you know, this 30 years of this person who is so full of dignity and grace and poise and control, it was really fun to go in there and just be bad. Just be bad. Just wanna, you know, just consume all that pain, you know. It was great. It was great. And then they come back and you do Storm, the queen under control. But it was wonderful to just sort of to let go. And who doesn't want to play a good villain every now and again, you know?
Hank's journey through the 5 seasons of Taz and the first season of X-Men 97 was always one of hopeful coexistence, of trying to overcome violence with reason until the destruction of Genosha. And then his words are, maybe Magneto was right.
forallnerds.com. Get the shirt. You want a shirt? We got y'all. Done. forallnerds.com. Actually, you can get this shirt and many others.
That's awesome. And you know that, so in that episode, it's what? It's episode 5? No, episode 6. Is that where Val Cooper? 6 or 7, she's been taken captive by... Or it might be, it's 8, 9, 10, isn't it? It's the three-part final. And Val Cooper, at the end of, I think, episode 7, says, Magneto was right. So that's Catherine Disher, who's the original Jean Grey. Yeah. And I remember like texting her afterwards, and I'm like, you get the line. You're the one that gets to say the line. And she's like, yeah, but it's, I don't know. How did it turn out? I'm like, it's awesome. Because she doesn't have Disney Plus. So I'm like, Catherine. I'm texting her after every week episode drop. And I'm like, you have to watch it. I'm losing my friggin' mind here. And you're like, oh, is it good? I don't know. And I'm like, Catherine, watch the show. In terms of me coming back to be Absissa, again, as Alison and George were talking about, we recorded in isolation. It was also kind of still during the pandemic. So it was all very, very cautious. Like, there was an engineer and then the one actor, and that was it. And like nobody even in the waiting room anymore. It was, well, also the crew was on LA time. So we were recording often at like 6 p.m. It was weird. So initially I went in and I did my lines, and there was animation already, a lot of it. So I got to see my character, which was pretty awesome. And I did my lines, and that was fine. And then, like, quite a while later, I got called back in to do some ADR, because they were rejigging the dialogue and whatnot. And I went back in, and in a couple of places, like there was scratch track, because they had to have scratch track for the animators to be able to work from. But in a couple of spots, I heard the real new Jubilee voice. And I remember the first time I heard it, and I'm like, and I'm just there in the studio by myself. There's a camera on me because the LA team, they're all watching me on Zoom so we can communicate and whatnot. But I'm just like this little fly on the wall, and I catch it, and I'm like, oh, that's her. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, she's good. Oh, I like her. And I couldn't tell anybody. Like, I had to just sit there quietly. That was the hardest part. Like, not talking about involvement or anything, that was easy, because they will sue us by millions and millions of dollars. So easy not to talk. But not to, like, just come out and say, I've heard the new Jubilee, and she's great, all you haters out there. But no, seriously, like, just, like, calm down, you're gonna love her, she's great. But I got to hear her, and at the end of the recording, I said to our voice director, Meredith, I'm like, hey, that's her, right? I really like her. She sounds great. So I know that the fan base can be a difficult one at times. So I would love to support her publicly if and when we're allowed to do that. So I gave my contact information, and then like months later, had to go back in again to do some ADR. And Meredith, our voice director, was like, okay, we told Holly your message. She freaked out. She adores you. She's a huge fan. So here's her contact information and blah, blah, blah. And so shortly before the show actually finally dropped, we were like texting each other. It's like, hey, I think you're pretty cool. It's like, hey, I kind of like you too. And it was, so we had this lovely little text message friendship that started to develop after hearing each other in that episode, doing the ADR. So it was a weird moment, but it was also wonderful. Because there are times in that episode when you can hear, she sounds just like me. And then there are things, it's like, but she's got her own personality. And you can hear the similarities and the differences between the two of us. And it's just such a great representation for both of us. So I honestly think the show did a wonderful job in terms of, doing something for the fans and allowing me to come back and pass the torch properly. So I hope you guys all liked that one.
I think they're happy. You all, and you started with it, you're very cognizant of the impact each of you have made in this culture and this fandom for a variety of people. You've touched and raised generations. I mean, it is quite literally cross-generation. Even looking into this room right now, you see a wealth of backgrounds and experiences, and the lessons that come about in this series is incredible. And they're all relatable across an expanse. When you think about that, and you think about all of that you've done in this world with your craft, what is your view of what your legacy is? And I understand that's a heavy question, it's a lot, but I'll give you an example. Like, for example, Miss Alison on the end, you have Lunette. You mentioned Lunette, that you literally raised a whole, generation of young millennials. You know what I mean? And things that people recognize and they have callbacks in their mind, things that they literally learned their numbers or their ABCs or whatever it may be. You've touched them from their childhood, right? And then even like we talk about characters like Beast, the fact that you can think one way and then your thinking can shift, and it's okay. When you are presented with new information, it's okay to change your mind, right? Things like that. And then obviously when we talk about characters like Storm and the fact that it is okay to live within your power, and it's okay to doubt yourself, but you have to learn to expand and grow. So I say all that to give you an understanding of what I mean by that legacy. That's what are you building for people? What do you think that you're building by all the work that you do? You could think about it.
Well, every actor's career consists of much more than one role. And as Alyson has appeared at Stratford for numbers of years, I appeared at Stratford and did tons of theater. We've all done a mess of things. But the one thing that stands out and is the legacy is Xmen. It's not the comedies that we did, the red-green shows or the silliness that we entertained people with. The subject of X-Men was important, and it is more important today than it was in the 1990s. Much more important. And the lesson that we are trying to put out there is that very essence of coexistence, of peaceful coexistence, and the need for us to put all these differences and the division of the entire world behind us and try and work together for one world that is living in peace, that accepts everyone equally. Essentially, it's utopia. And that is the legacy that I think that all of us as X-Men cast members will leave behind. Not the laughs we got on the red-green show or the silliness that we did in the cop shows. This is an important piece of work.
don't know if legacy is something that I get to decide what it is. The whole thing about legacy is that it is the generations after. You get to decide what my legacy is as an actor, and you get to decide what the legacy of Xmen is and will be. I agree with George that the world that we're entering now, we're dealing with some existential adversaries, and we're only going to be able to get through it together. And so the lesson of Xmen, which is that we don't have to be the same to get together. It's not about that everybody's all the same. It's not like, oh, there's really no difference between us. There are differences. There are lots of differences, and they need to be celebrated, and we need to come together despite that. But that's to me for the audience and for the world that comes after to decide what that legacy is. I'm just really proud and honored to have been a part and to continue to be a part of this. And, you decide what that legacy is and whether it will live on or not.
And then eventually AI is just going to steal all of our images and voices anyway, so.
And our voices they'll take them. The AI can just take your voice and do it, so.
But it's not going to have the personality, so.
After you answer your question, I'm just curious what you all feel about AI.
Oh, that's a messy one. I'm so sorry.
AI, bad.
Actually, it's a tool. I think this comes really well off of what Alison was just talking about, where, and George just like working together, and humanity, whether like every single person on this planet feels that there's something strange and different about them that they are ashamed of. It doesn't matter if they look like a cookie cutter Barbie doll or whatever. Let me tell you, they hate themselves in some way. Like it's innately part of us, right? So we all have differences that we feel ashamed of or awkward about. And whether we acknowledge those individual differences or not, we're still, each and every one of us, responsible for how we get along on this planet and responsible for how we're caring for the planet. We don't get to sit back just because it's like, well, I'm different. We all gotta pull our weight. AI is a tool, like anything else, like social media. It's a tool. And we should be able to use it responsibly because we are an intelligent species. We should be able to. But like most things that humanity eventually gets our hands on, we abuse it, and we use it to abuse other people. This is why we can't have nice things. It's a tool.
It is a tool that can be used against humanity. They can do anything. They can frame you. They can make you commit crimes and put you in places you never were. It's more than just stealing your voice and using it for entertainment value. It is a way that you can be controlled. And it is a very dangerous tool, and it is in the hands of people, which makes it even more dangerous because people are fallible. And as Beast quote, power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And this is the danger of AI, is that it gives people an enormous amount of power. And we can all see in this world what that has done.
Miss Allison, do you have any views on AI?
off instead of turning it on. Yes, AI is a tool and can be used for good or ill. What it makes me think of the most is, I live out in the country now. I live up on Manitoulin Island in the middle of nowhere. And everybody has guns. And they have guns because they're bears, and there are coyotes, and they need guns, because guns are tools, right? I'm just gonna leave that there because I think we all know the havoc, the tragedy that comes about from owning those particular tools. That's AI.
Absolutely. Okay, so as we wind down, I want to give the audience a chance to ask some questions. I will come to you, and I need an actual question. Not a diatribe, not an essay, but a question. No stupid questions. I saw you raise your hand. Let me come over here to you. And please say your name as well.
Hi, my name is Ashley. I have a question for Alison.
Which one?
I have a question for Storm. How is it when you meet younger Black female fans and they express how much you meant to them and how it felt to see a Black superhero that looked like them? And when there was definitely not a lot of that, there wasn't a lot of Black Lightning on TV or like Static Shock yet. And especially as a woman Black superhero, like once you guys were out of the recording bubble, how did it feel to interact with those young fans?
That I am lucky that Stan Lee and all of those people from way back in the day when it wasn't cool to be talking about powerful Black women, when it wasn't the buzzword inclusivity and diversity and all of that kind of stuff. I'm lucky that writers like that existed, and I am lucky that I got a chance to play that role and to open up that possibility, because back in the day, it's different now. Representation is much more out there, but it wasn't for a long, long time. I mean, this role that I was allowed to play, that I was given the opportunity to play in the early 90s, there wasn't a whole lot of representation on TV. And you know, I spent my professional career in Canada, and you know, as much as our representation might have been lacking on American TV, let me tell you, in Canada, it was worse. We didn't drive cars, apparently. We didn't use feminine hygiene products either. We were just simply not represented on TV. There was no voice. And so I think it's a major, major thing. And again, what's beautiful now is that people can come up to you and tell you. I was doing this in the 90s and not knowing, just saying to myself, oh wow, this is a good gig. This is a real good gig. I'm glad I get a chance to do this, you know, and be powerful and Black and strong and classy and a leader, and this is great. But it wasn't really until a while after that you became fully cognizant of the impact that it was having and what it meant to other people. And so I feel lucky that I was a part of that.
Okay. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daniel, aka Napoleon 1020, also known as Remy LeBeau. My question is for all of the voice actors. How do you guys feel about Gambit's sacrifice in the series?
They ripped my heart out. Still not over it.
It was heart-wrenching, and it was the supreme sacrifice. But it also is the spirit of Xmen, is that you are willing to give your life for the life of others.
I wish I knew how Storm felt. I suppose that's one of the bad things about flipping through Facebook and hearing and seeing what the fans are saying. And before you you did your job, you did it, and it's great writing. And now sometimes all of a sudden you go, yeah, they're right. How come she didn't say anything, man? Okay, don't think about that. Don't think about that. Don't think about that. Don't think about that. So but I would imagine that given what I know and what I understand of Storm, that, I'm pretty sure that she was devastated, and I'm pretty sure that she understood why exactly Gambit did what he did and made the supreme sacrifice, because as George said, that's what we do.
I think we have time for maybe 2 more questions. Say your name.
Cool. Hi, my name is Alonso, and my question is for George, a fellow comic buff. So X-Men has many, many storylines. So is there one storyline that you would like to see adapted in X-Men 97?
I haven't read X-Men comic books since the 1960s, so I'm not really familiar with the storylines. I know I just purchased these 4 sets of Beauty and the Beast, my favorite episode. I would like to see Beast have a love interest.
I thought you and the reporter, you guys watched the X-Men, right? Wasn't that beautiful?
There was a hint that there was
I
something
thought that was going to happen, and then she's a freaking Sentinel thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I was heartbroken
I'd
for
like
you.
to see that developed.
Okay, we have another question back here.
Hey, Alyson, how you doing? My name is Juan Ayala. I go by The Real Platano Man on that Instagram. Follow me back. For Alyson Storm, not Alyson Jubilee, I love you. When you were a clown that did the clock thing with your legs, it did things to me as a child. Beast, you're amazing. Alyson, in this world of new media, all these actresses, artists, athletes emerging in the Black community, we have way more options today than we did back then. So moving forward, what new emerging athlete like Jade Cargill or Janelle Monáe, y'all see where I'm going with this, who would you want to see, Sexy Red, I'm just throwing names out, who would you want to see play you, Beyonce, who would you want to see play you in the MCU? Just,
Who would you like to see play Storm?
I don't have a clue. I don't know. I can't go there. I am so... Listen, when I'm
down for Cowboy Carter playing Storm, though. Beyonce.
When I am not in the studio doing this, do you want to know what I do? I got 2 new pigs. George and Juniper. And I spend my time with them. I have a lot of chickens. I have a rooster that I tell every single day what good chicken stock he's gonna make. Because I have never had a small animal dedicating his life to hurting me before. So those are my concerns, and that I lost 1 hive of bees, and now I only have 1 hive left. And yes, but they have taken honeybees off the endangered list, so this is good.
All right, I think this
so
will...
these are the things that preoccupy my time.
Save the bees. I think we have one more question.
Hi, my name is Anaya. First, I want to say big up to the Beijing boss. Second, I want to ask you, Storm, for me personally, it really hurts my spirit when I see female characters on TV and they're being played like punks when that's not who they are in the comics. So did Storm's strength, is that something you had to push for on screen, or did you face any challenges with her true power being downplayed because she's a woman, even though it's not true to her comic?
Were you able to have the freedom to show Storm's true power as she was portrayed in the comics, or was she downplayed at any point in the cartoon?
I didn't know the comics. I came into it not knowing the comics. I still don't know the comics. My job on this one is to take the words of the writers of the script that I'm doing and to follow the directions given to me by the director, more, less, faster, more empathetic, more more majestic, whatever they are. That's my job. And so I don't know, and there are lots of roads that I can't kind of let myself go down as the actor. Just the things that we talked about here. Like, why didn't she have more of a response to Gambit's death? Or why didn't this happen? Or, how come in the animated series it seemed like she and Rogue were sisters, and in this one it's Jean Grey, but I don't know the comics, so I didn't know that was really the responsibility. I just have to make sure that my responsibility as an actor is to the story that is being told in the particular script and the words that are being told. So
Do you notice how, like, because in the first season, I got opinions, okay. So in the first season, we see a lot of Storm struggling with what she's going through. Like, there hasn't, aside from that, oh my God, that first entrance when a mega level threat detected,
Yes.
and the music. You've got your own theme song.
I got my own theme. I got
Her
my own
music,
theme.
I get chills every time. But aside from that, yeah, there's been a lot of Storm's fragility, or else not seeing her a lot at all right now. But you notice she's always there, like she's always the stoic one for the rest of the X-Men. But when she had to struggle, she had to go away. And she was doing it in private. And it's interesting how it was like she didn't feel comfortable turning to somebody else the way she's always there for them. And so that's been a fascinating part, because I think as wonderful as it is to have such a strong character, one of the greatest gifts is to be able to play a character who is allowed to be flawed. Mm-hmm. Because so often in what we do, in the material that we do, especially as the female character and then the female black character, you have to be perfect. You have to be perfect. You're not allowed to have any like quirky personality things or difficulties with anything. So I think even though we all want to see Storm just rage and rip things apart, being able to see that other side of her is really, really important, because she is a multifaceted character.
Yeah. And that she does it by the fact that she does it by herself, I think, is really, really important. And I mean, if you're a mother and you look after everybody in the house when they're sick, everybody, slightest cold, let mom get sick, and that's one that she has to go through by herself. And so yes, I do think that was an accurate representation of where we as women have to go sometimes, which is, heal yourself and go through it on your own and come out better on the other side.
I know from the bottom of my heart, the bottom of Ben Amin's heart, and everyone in Brooklyn right now at this Comic-Con, we want to thank all of you for your time. Let's stand up. Let's stand up. I just want each of you to know that we are grateful and we are humbled that you have been with us today. You deserve your flowers every day, and that I truly pray that your name, your works, your legacy lives on for time immemorial. So thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. They cut me off. Thank you, everybody, and appreciate your time. Please make your way.
Take it away, feeling too good to me. Chilling all day, all in your space is where I wanna be. Here in this room, what did you do? I just can't get enough. Too caught up in your love. I've been trying to forget, but you won't let me. Something in my brain wants you. I've been hanging on myself, asking for help, but nothing seems to work on you. Yeah. You always make me feel like, oh yeah. You never leave my thoughts alone, yeah. You're the reason I'm going out of my mind. I just can't stop thinking about you. All that I crave when you're away, nights are sleepless. Do we need space? Yeah, maybe a break, boy, you're my weakness.